Dearest, dearest, note how these two are alike. This harpsichord pavan by Purcell and the race's 12-speed bike. The machinery of grace is always simple. These are the opening lines of a poem entitled Machines by Michael Donaghy. For us here today, I hope they will foment questions of what it is to design, build, and use machines with grace. The machines I'm thinking of are not the mechanical Turks and automata of old. Instead, they are a new type of machine that is reactive, that assesses its own decisions, and that grows with experience. The machines I'm thinking of are machines with intelligence, machines that learn. Designing machines that learn is the realm of the field of artificial intelligence and of machine learning. Like a knot, this field ties together strands from many different subjects, from statistics and logic and psychology and computation. When we bring these different strands together, we make it possible to design these new types of machines. Imagine a machine that can recognize objects in the world and how they can be used. Machines that can provide explanations of events and observations. A machine that can reason about cause and effect, plan complex sequences of actions, and assess the confidence in its own decisions. These are elements of our human intelligence, and we could call a machine with these abilities an artificial intelligence. Machine learning gives us the tools with which to develop AI. While we don't have any systems that can do all these tasks together quite yet, with what we already know, we can do much. As a machine learning scientist and engineer, I have been able to rely on the tools of our field to work on problems in many different settings. From systems that I hope could one day help us prevent organ failure in hospitals, all the way to those foundational problems of what it really means for a machine to make sense of a dynamic world. In our field, we thrive on a sense of progress, our eyes fixed firmly to the future with optimism and excitement, moving and forwards always. Grace emerges in this movement. Grace lives in how we balance the role of new technologies against their impact on people and societies. Grace is in our memory of the change brought by past technologies and in our consideration of safe change in the future. Some of you would have heard of the ungraceful and at times simply disgraceful uses of AI. From racially biased facial recognition systems that simply cannot detect black faces, recruitment tools that discriminate against women, or those decision support tools for parole review that reproduce existing bias and injustice, or examples of systems whose security is compromised by deepfakes that clone faces and voices from video and audio, or those examples of systems whose accuracy is reduced by a simple adversary. There are many reasons for these lapses in grace, but perhaps part of the reason lies in the current state of global artificial intelligence. Global AI is far from global. Instead, it is contained within specific individuals, institutions, and organizations, and countries. And perhaps we can say the same of global science as well. We can better understand this state of affairs by looking at the number of researchers in different countries as one rough proxy. Here in the United Kingdom, and in similar countries like Germany or the United States, we have around 4,000 researchers per 1 million people. In South Africa, where I am proudly from, this number, though, is closer to 400 per million people. And in Ghana, a country I love visiting, this number is more like 40 per million. The contributions to global knowledge are far from uniform, and from this vantage, attaining grace remains in the distant horizon. In machine learning and related areas where data is so central to success, the generation, ownership, and management of data is critical. There are many problems where pooling as much data as we have available is needed for progress. But again, there are too many disgraces. Data that's used for targeted misinformation and breaches in data privacy are just two examples that come to mind. And then there are the many gray areas. Situations that support economic development on one hand, while invoking a tradition of extraction on the other. For example, it is not uncommon to find large organizations in developing countries committed solely to the cheap annotation of data that's used for highly profitable uses elsewhere. If we put this global imbalance in the distribution of researchers alongside this view of an extractive role of data, you and I might come to recognize the creeping concern over a new type of technological colonialism, where resources and data and money and talent are taken and little is left behind. You and I are not oblivious to the possibility of an imperialism based on data and its ownership. We can recognize a forming cyber-colonialism that expands as censorship increases and online freedoms are curtailed. As the critical scholar, we can do much to add to this description of the global state of AI and of our sciences. Yet, countermeasures to technological colonialism are at hand, and we can enact them together by doing the work of transformation. By transformation, I mean enacting the systemic and social changes that are needed to strengthen diversity, respect, responsibility, and freedom, the essentials of grace. And while these might appear to be the grandest of ideals, transformation's enabling principle is simple. Transformation lives in the mundane. Transformation lives in the everyday, in the small things, in our simple and small actions and reactions. When transformation lives in the mundane, it is magnified in the larger technological, social, and institutional spaces we occupy. This is then the core for a new critical practice of machine learning, a change in our practice that encourages our forward motion and optimism while balanced against our responsibility to safety and our communities. Forwards and balance, just like riding a bike. And the beginnings of this work are already in place. We already look out for solutionist thinking, knowing that the best solution for certain problems may not involve complex technologies. We admit that we cannot solve complex social challenges through mathematical formalization alone. And we know that solutions that are beneficial in one setting and place can be harmful in others. These are some of the principles that we put into the Dagstuhl Declaration on AI for Social Good. There is one other solution from my experience I'd like to share. At its core, this new critical practice calls on us all to develop open and genuine intercultural dialogues within our sciences. Dialogues that lead to the co-design and inclusion in the mission of developing intelligent machines with grace. One clear strategy available to us all is in our support of grassroots organizations and in their ability to create change, elevate intercultural dialogue, and in doing the work of true transformation. I have the honor to lead such an organization called the Deep Learning Indaba, whose mission is to strengthen machine learning and artificial intelligence across our African continent. Over the last 3 years, we have been able to build new communities, create leadership, and recognize excellence in the development and use of artificial intelligence across Africa. And I am proud to see other groups follow in the same vein, in Eastern Europe, in Southeast Asia, and South America, all taking responsibility for their communities and building grassroots movements to support AI, dialogue, and transformation. I used the opening poem and its vision of harpsichords and bicycles and grace for 2 reasons. Firstly, to celebrate our progress in machine learning, but one that must now be balanced using a new critical practice. And secondly, for us all to think about transformation in the mundane and the critical role of grassroots organizations. If we are successful in making global AI truly global, and I believe we can be, we will set ourselves on the path towards realizing that intelligent machinery of grace. But so much more importantly, we will do so joyfully and together, at each step moving and transforming our world with an ever-renewed solidarity in friendship and with grace. Dearest, as our poem ends, so much is chance, so much agility, desire, and feverish care. As bicyclists and harpsichordists prove, who only by moving can balance, only by balancing move. Thank you.